This is Andy Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm delighted to be joined by Adam Smith over Zoom. Adam, I know you're in a bubble, isolating now, but how is life? How's things going?
Bubble life, what we've been used to, Andy, for the last sort of 3 or 4 months. Yeah, back at the Wembley residency, which has been fantastic. Actually, it's been a privilege to be here. It's been an absolute pleasure to be around all the fighters. The access has been incredible. The organisation from Matchroom and all the Sky organisation together, from what happens in the hotel to what obviously happens in the arena, and the social distancing and everything. It's just been it's been tough. It's been under strict regime. You have to wear masks everywhere, and you're only allowed out obviously when you test negative, and it's tough. But you just think that we're very, very lucky to be working. We're very lucky to be having as much boxing as we have. So it's as I said, it's just it's part of sort of the daily life at the moment, and it's just a privilege being part of it, and especially when you've got such big nights, and none bigger than what happens on Saturday in front of 1,000 fans, which is fantastic. The return of Anthony Joshua, world heavyweight title against Kubrat Pulev, biggest fight of the year for us. And it's fantastic that we sort of built up to this point. But yeah, it's isolation. It's good when you've got lots of things to do, like speak to you and others. It's good when you sort of tick those off, as opposed to sort of sit around twiddling your thumbs, because it's a long wait. And hopefully tomorrow morning, some of the team are out already in the bubble, the Sky Sports News team, but the rest of us all tested today. So hopefully we'll all be out sort of 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and we can really get to grips with what will be a huge fight week. So yeah, very excited, can't wait.
Now, unless Eddie has another show up his sleeve, this will be the last one that you'll be in the bubble for this year.
I hope so.
Obviously, with AJ in there this week, the biggest star to be in the bubble so far. How do you feel he'll cope with that kind of environment? We're used to seeing him with a huge entourage, being able to go out, enjoy his everyday life. Very different circumstances this time round.
Very different circumstances, but I'm sure Anthony Joshua will just adapt like he always does. I mean, last year he fought out in Saudi. That was very different. Before that, he was in New York. So he's been around the world. It's not as though he's not used to sort of he's fought at Wembley, hasn't he, a couple of times, and also the Principality. So it's just Wembley Arena. It's different. Fortunately, there are going to be some fans, which I think really will help. But the bubble life, yeah, look, I mean, it's about time he tried it out, Andy, to be honest. We've been doing it for a few months. What's he got, a few days in it? No, I'm sure, look, he's bringing a big team in, and I'm sure they will, partly keep themselves to themselves, which is right. And I think they'll make sure that, that everything is as they want it. But, the great thing about the bubble is that you do, bump into fighters all the time, and you do sit across the corridor, or sit across the dining tables, or there's the media room. There's not that much space. I mean, it's a wonderful setup, but of course you're in one floor of a hotel. And I think that, I'm sure Anthony, as I said, will have his areas that he can go to. And we found with Katie Taylor, she kept herself very much to herself with her team. And then we saw her when, there were media events, and there's something every day. So we'll see plenty of him. But I think that, it won't be like some of the undercard fighters, some of the of the fighters over the last few weeks have been really, really sort of visible, around. Shannon Courtney was playing darts with us the night before her fight. Terry Harper was watching the Golden Contract boxing with us. That you see them, and you get a lot more time with the fighters, which is fantastic, because of course they're twiddling their thumbs a bit. They can't go out either. But when sort of the ones that have got to make weight, obviously that's tough. They've got to, that's an absolute sort of mark they've got to hit. And there's a gym and a ring for sort of last minute training, and I'm sure we'll see all of them go through their paces to an extent. So the workouts won't be in a specific area, then the weigh-in in another area, and all that. Everything's here, so we'll get plenty of access. But I think what will happen this week is, obviously there's going to be a great deal more people and a lot more interest and a lot more media, and I think that there's still limitations. There's limits to how many we can bring in, or how many ceremony. I'm sure that, you know, the media are allowed, and same again on fight night, because there's not much space and everybody's got to be social distance, and it can only fit and house so many. But it was quite quiet at times, you know. The Conor Benn week last week with Billy Joe Saunders, it was good because you could walk around and really chat to some of the fighters. But I think it's going to be a heavier presence this time, more at stake. I mean, it feels like already like a bigger week. You know, quite a lot of people are already out there in the bubble, and you know, we've tested today, a number of us, and then we go out tomorrow. So I think it's going to be it's going to be hectic this week, and I think that'll add to some spice. And you know, let's see what happens when Pulev and Joshua sort of, you know, brush past each other. You've got Hughie, Fury, and Vac. You've got, you know, Coley and Kuzman. There's lots of, you know, interesting fights on the card, and you know, we'll see how they all adapt to bubble life. It will be different, I should think, for each team. And normally you sort of find sort of one team who really have enjoyed it, and then another who sort of can't wait to get out and fight. So, but yeah, look, it's great for our purposes because of the access, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of tales coming out on fight week as we build up to the big one.
And then moving on to the fight itself and onto AJ. Last time out, we saw him produce a terrific boxing display against Andy Ruiz Jr. to reclaim his heavyweight titles. This time round, do you think we will see him get back to kind of that vicious side that we've been used to seeing, that knockout artist, or do you think he might be slightly cautious, knowing in 2021 the Tyson Fury fight's there for him, provided he overcomes the challenge of Kubrat Pulev?
It's a very good question. I mean, I think he likes the sort of, you know, the hard-hitting knockout AJ, but I think he's got more used to the boxing AJ as well, and I think he'll mix it up in this fight. I really do. I think Kubrat Pulev is a really tough guy, and yeah, he's aging. Yes, he got beaten by Vladimir Klitschko many years back, and he's been slightly inactive over the years. They obviously should have met in 2017, but this is a guy, apart from a couple of other scares, being down by, you know, fell by Klitschko during their fight, and obviously got up to win in you know, probably the most incredible fight he's ever been in. But you know, then you've got Dillian White shook him up in the second round. You know, there's that slight vulnerability which obviously appeals to the AJ attraction, because he can punch, he's very athletic, he's a good boxer. You know, he's got so much in his arsenal as well. And I think that, you know, what's been happening since the Ruiz first fight is that, you know, Rob McCracken has been supported by Angel Hernandez and Joby Clayton, and I think what they brought to Joshua is just a slightly different sort of outlook. And you know, Rob has. It's been great for Rob because he's an amazing trainer, and he's done so well with Carl, with Anthony, with all the GB squad. But I think sometimes it's useful to get other people in. I remember when Lennox Lewis had Emmanuel Stewart as his main trainer after he got rid of Pepe Carrera when he lost to Oliver McCall. But he brought Harold Knight in as well, who was Emmanuel's assistant, and he did a lot of work with Harold, who I think always doesn't get the acclaim, the credit. You know, it was to his team, and to have the sort of right people around him now, and people with slightly different views, has I think helped Anthony. And I think that, you know, I was up watching him spar a few weeks ago, and you know, he was trying different things out. He was much more versatile. He was looking for different punches and angles and taking his time, not wasting too much. So I imagine he's going to mix it up a bit in this fight. I think he's got to be cautious because Pulev is heavy-handed. He's a tough heavyweight, and it's, you know, it's not an easy match. I mean, everyone might say that, look, it's his mandatory and he should get through him and then fight, you know, Tyson Fury, and of course he should do. But this is heavyweight boxing, as we saw with White Povetkin. One punch changes everything. So he's going to be not cautious. I don't think he's going to be, you know, worried about the fact that, you know, that he's got to preserve himself to make sure he wins and wins at all costs because of Fury. I don't think it's going to be that, but I think he's going to be sensible in there, and I think he'll try and mix it up with Pulev. So he's got to be careful because Pulev's got a very big jab and a good jab and a solid one. And if Pulev gets into that sort of, you know, that center ring and starts, you know, pounding that out and you know, backs Joshua up, well, you know, this could become a difficult fight for him. So I'm expecting a sort of mix and match. I'm expecting some heavy shots, you know, with a sort of more fluent Joshua. I think he was boxing completely executing a game plan in the second fight with Ruiz. Ruiz. That's what he had to do. It was win at all costs, get that W. I think this will be more exciting. I think you will see some of that old AJ and the one that the fans really love. But I think it will be sensible. I think it will be technical, and I expect him to look good against Pulev. But I think we'll get a bit of everything. I think what people want to see is, a lot of people think Fury's the favourite in that fight should they meet, and I think what people want to see is that versatility with Joshua, that he can do a bit of everything. And I think he's becoming a more mature fighter. I think what we'll see is what he's worked on this year. At the beginning of fight camp in August, when Dillian and Povetkin fought, he was ready to fight. He was fight ready. His weight was perfect, and he really wanted to get in that ring in the Garden. So I think he spent a lot of time working on certain things with Rob and with Joby and with Angel and with all the sort of close-knit team. He's had great sparring in, and I'm really looking forward to not looking at seeing a new AJ, but seeing an improved AJ, and I think we'll get that. But let's not just talk about Anthony Joshua. Kubrat Pulev is dangerous. He's tough. He beat Hughie Fury. He beat Derek Chisora. He's, as I said, the one loss to Vladimir Klitschko when Klitschko was right at his peak. No disgrace there. And this guy's waited a long, long time for his opportunity. He'd have been sick that he had to pull out with a shoulder problem just 11, 12 days before the fight in Cardiff. We got to meet him at that original press conference, and he's a wise guy, and he's been around a long time in this sport, and I think he'll know this is his golden opportunity. And he's if he wins this, then as we saw with Andy Ruiz, the financial sort of implications and the life-changing night that he could have, it's something he's gonna do everything he can to upset AJ. And of course, he's seen that happen before with Andy Ruiz, so he's got to be full of confidence, Kubrat Pulev. I can't wait to get out and see him.
We know Eddie's opened up an invitation to Tyson to turn up on Saturday night. Do you anticipate we will see the Gypsy King ringside?
I've been swapping messages with Tyson, actually more about Billy Joe Saunders, because of course he was very keen on watching Billy Joe, and Billy Joe boxed really well on Friday night last week, and I think the Gypsy King was very happy with his buddy. I'd love to see Tyson Fury there, of course. It'd be brilliant, and he'd be very welcome. Of course he would. It would be fantastic to see him. I think it would be an extra treat for the 1,000 fans, not only to have the fight, but also to have the subplot. Could we imagine, Tyson getting in the ring afterwards? I don't think he's going to sort of burst into the ring a bit like he did with the Deontay Wilder situation when Wilder fought Spilker, and he came and sort of gate crashed it. I think, I don't know, who knows, but wouldn't it be fun if there was a bit of something in the ring afterwards? Maybe socially distanced, of course, in this at this time. But yeah, look, even if he's not, I think it would be advisable for him to come. I mean, it's to come and watch Joshua up close, and who knows what sort of environment they're going to be fighting in next year. We hope it's going to be big stadium somewhere in Britain or around the world, but you don't know. It could be in front of sort of less people. So I think it will be advisable for Tyson, if he's free, to come on down on Saturday night and watch Joshua Pulev up close. But I'm sure if he's not down here, he'll be watching on Sky Sports Box Office, Andy, and we look forward to hopefully the unification being made at some point in the near future. But we don't know. We don't know what his plans are. He was going to fight Deontay Wilder, who's going to fight Agit Kabayel, and who knows what's happening with the Wilder camp. But I know the fight that everybody wants to see, and I know the fight that Tyson wants, and I know the fight that Anthony wants. And should Anthony gets past Pulev, I'm absolutely certain that Eddie and Anthony will be doing everything they can to try and make that fight. And from what I've spoken to Tyson through this year, I think he wants that fight more than anything. So when the two of them really want it so much, it's got every chance of happening, I think.
Moving on to the rest of the card, Adam, we see obviously Hughie Fury versus Mariuszczak. A lot of people seem to just think, and you could imagine it may well do, just go to points and maybe a long fight. Is that what you're expecting?
Well, Mariuszczak's a very tough guy. We saw him obviously out in Saudi, and he goes the distance. He's been in with them all, hasn't he? And it would be pretty cool if Hughie Fury could make a statement and somehow halt that. I think it's going to be tough. I see that as a long fight. But Hughie is he's had a couple of defeats. He's lost a few, but he's lost in good company, and he's young. And I think that he's I love Peter Fury as a trainer. I think he's very good. I've loved what he's done with Savannah Marshall, our old scholar at Sky, and he's a real confidence building trainer, and he's a very clever guy as well. So I think that I expect a Hughie Fury, a really good Hughie Fury display. I think he's been waiting to put on a good performance. I don't think he has too much to fear from Vac. I think that Vac is strong, he's tough, he's very durable. But I think that this could be a chance for Hughie to take a couple of risks, and I think that'll be good for Saturday night. But I see that as a long fight, and one I think Hughie can get through. But probably the manner of victory is what he needs to think about.
But Coley Kuzman, an interesting matchup, Adam.
Really good fight.
What do you think?
Really good fight. I think it's an excellent match. I think it's one of the standout fights on the card. I really can't wait for that one. Coley's got some momentum, hasn't he? He's been exciting us, and we've missed him. We haven't had him for a while, and I think the match is a great one. I really do. They're good heavyweights. They're not quite right at that level, but the winner can go on. And I just think I like the match. I see it as a very close match, a very hard fight for the pair of them. It's a good one. It's a really, really good fight.
Adam, unfortunately, the card's been kind of blighted with a few fighters testing positive for COVID. With that in mind, we will still see Laurence Coley in action on Saturday night. Unfortunately, the WBO title won't be on the line, but he'll be facing Jezewski instead. Just kind of your thoughts on that entire situation and how gutted or frustrated you may feel for Laurence to not be able to challenge for that version of the world title.
You just broke up there, Andy, slightly, but I think I got your question. Laurence Coley, listen, we're upset. Of course we are. It was a really, really interesting fight for the world title, and what can you do? This is the unfortunate part of the year. The pandemic has been terrible and turbulent, and we've actually managed to get a lot of boxing on in really difficult circumstances. But we know Alexander Povetkin tested positive, so we lost that big fight. The most important thing for this week is we know that Pulev's team everyone's tested fine, and we just hope that everybody associated with Anthony does. That's the most important thing. But obviously, on the card, you are going to risk some. Ramla Ali is devastated. That she tested positive. Really good showcase for her, but these things happen, and she'll come back. And unfortunately, the Coley fight, same way. But it looks like it's a decent opponent. Replacement on paper, unbeaten in I think 20, 19 wins, and so look, the most important thing is that Coley gets back in a big fight. He's got he's an enigma, isn't he? He's very awkward to fight. He's got that power. He's got that awkward reach. There's a bit of Johnny Nelson about him, and it's don't know. I think Laurence can become a world champion, and I think we're really looking forward to having him back. So very pleased he's on the bill, and I think that it's it's an interesting fight because he's unbeaten, isn't he, Jezewski? So let's see what happens with that. But you've got to be disappointed when fighters fall through. It's really upsetting, but the show goes on, and Eddie's done a great job with getting replacements, and especially again at this time when it's so difficult. Travel's hard. You've got to get into the bubble. You've got to get tested. There's so many difficult parts of the jigsaw to put together. I remember him saying a few weeks ago, when he tested positive, it's like Russian roulette. You just don't know what's going to happen next, and it's a bit like that. We all hope every week that our tests come back negative, but ultimately, if they're positive tests, then they're positive tests. You can't do anything about it. That's why it's in the rules and the strictness is so important, so that it keeps everybody safe. And my colleague Spencer Oliver and loads of people have tested positive to COVID over the last few weeks and months, and unfortunately a lot of people that we know in boxing have been okay. But we know with Anthony Yarde, who fought on the weekend, that he lost a couple of his family members, and a lot of people have been really suffering this year. So as long as people are happy and healthy and safe, and if people test positive, they test positive. They another day will come, but there has to be the guidelines in place, because this is a this is a terrible pandemic, and and it's not over. Yeah, we've had the lockdown. Yeah, we hear that the rates are going down a bit, but then will they come back up after the Christmas period? The vaccines all great, but how long is that going to take to get around? And we might be in a really difficult position for the next few months. So I think week by week we just have done so well in getting so many shows back out and sort of almost fighting off the issues that we have. We normally have issues, Andy, we know, with fighters failing to make weight, or pulling out with an injury or something going wrong. There's always a story, isn't there? Well, double it, triple it now, because there's all of this to deal with as well. And I think that, I've got to say, come the end of this week, I know we've got Callum-Smith and Canelo to look forward to next week on our Dazn rivals. But we're looking forward to that fight. We can't wait for that. Great fight, just like Joyce Dubois was on BT the other night. But as far as we're concerned at Sky, our outside broadcast can just, be put on hold for a bit. We've had a huge period heading into December the 12th, and then we'll come back, in January, and then maybe we'll be able to get a few more people in crowd-wise, and who knows, maybe we'll be back here in this residency or somewhere else. But we just got to adapt to every situation. Fight Camp was novel, was innovative, and now this, then we did, what do we do? Peterborough, Milton Keynes, all sorts of others. But Wembley's been, we've got a really good setup here, just over the road. Everyone seems to be enjoying it. It's a nice feel. It's a communal feel, and at a year like this, it's really nice to have people smiling again, and especially as they run into Christmas too. So, but I think we'll all be, once this is the big week's over, I think we'll all be pleased with some time just to rest and recharge and go again.
Final fight on the card, I just want to touch on for this coming weekend. Adam, we see Florian Marku make his matchroom debut, an exciting Albanian who always looks to bring destruction whenever he enters the ring. What are you expecting to see from Florian on Saturday?
I'll tell you something, right? Earlier this year, my mum lives in Swiss Cottage, and I went up to see her, and I see her very regularly. She lives on her own. I take her out, etc. So, we spend as much time as we can together. And as you may know, she loves the boxing. And we actually we're walking through a little park, and we saw Don Charles and Florian. And Dom was just raving about him, and he was like, I'm coming for everybody. So I know a lot of people associate with the Don Charles gym, and a good friend of mine, Ali Ahmed, who's involved as well with Don, and I'm really excited about this guy. When I heard that Eddie was signing him, I was just like, wow, he's got big support, he's nuts, he's exciting. There's something about him, and look, I would love Ramla to have been on the card. I think Ramla's an amazing story, and I think for the sort of casual fans who come in for an Anthony-Joshua fight, she would have sat really well on the card. So I'm gutted for her, but I'm pleased that Florian comes on and makes his matchroom debut. And he's there's something about him, something very spicy, and I look forward to watching his progress.
Going back to this past weekend, Adam, to touch on the fights on Friday night, and of course Lyndon Arthur versus Anthony Yarde. Starting off with Saunders Murray, Billy Joe with an impressive dominant display against Martin. Your thoughts on it? A little surprised or frustrated at all that we didn't maybe see Billy Joe push for the stoppage, or all in all happy?
Yeah, I mean, look, I didn't think he performed well in LA last year. I thought he had a pretty awful fight until he, as good champions do, came out with a finish. A lot of pressure on Billy Joe. He didn't get the Canelo fight. A lot of people said he's easily going to walk through Martin Murray, which I think, with the timing of both men's careers, you can understand. But also, that's pretty disrespectful to a guy who's fought, 4 times for the world title, is always in fantastic shape, and is with someone like Jamie Moore and Nigel Travis. He was always going to come in excellent shape. He was going to give it everything he knew. And it sort of panned out rather like I thought it would. I mean, I was pleased Martin was, competitive throughout. Yes, he was losing rounds, but he was tough and he was hard and he was trying everything. It wasn't there, was it? He couldn't pull that trigger and the reflexes, as he said afterwards, and I've swapped messages with him since, and he said I just found it wasn't there, and that's what you hear from fighters when they know it's probably time to move on, that it just isn't there. Their mind wants to think something, but the body just isn't quite allowing them to do that. I thought Billy was a bit hard on himself afterwards in the interview. I think it was a really good performance. I think there was a chance in the sort of 4th, 5th round where maybe he could have, stepped on it. There was a knockdown that wasn't called. And I think that Martin was in a bit of a sticky situation at that time. But, he pulled himself together. He's got that very strong, solid defense, Murray, as well. And I think, I love Billy Joe's uppercuts. I loved his jab. I love the way he moved around the ring. And look, he got rounds in as well. So, yeah, would the stoppage have been the icing on the cake? Of course it would have been. But actually, I don't think any harm's done. I think he got 12 good rounds in. I think he's kept himself in great shape, and he's got the important win. The most important thing for him now is that it has to be a big fight next. I think that is crucial, whether it is the winner-loser of Canelo and Callum, whether it is Chris Eubank Jr., whether it is one of the other world champions. It's got to be something that is really going to get his juices flowing, and something that's going to keep him motivated too. He was in great shape. He was in good form in the bubble last week, with Mark Tibbs. It almost like, he knows now maybe that, he can't just sort of let his career drift. He's always had the talent. He's a 2-weight champion. He's unbeaten in 30 fights. And we're always still nitpicking a bit, aren't we? Because we all know how good he could be and how good he was when he was younger. But there's flashes, aren't there? We've seen a fantastic performance against David Lemieux. He was brilliant that night. Most of the Eubank fight he was. I like to see that. I think the rematch with Chris Eubank would be a one to savor. I really, really would enjoy that. But I also would say, Callum, if he pulls it off, what a fight that is back in Britain, Callum and Billy Joe. And even if he doesn't, but, Canelo wins, in a hard fight or something, and Callum comes back, that's a big fight you can make. I mean, there's a lot of, British possibilities next year in and around that division. Add John Ryder to the mix as well. There's some really good fights to be made at super middleweight. And I think, poor Zach Parker didn't have the chance on the bill. That was called off. But, he's sitting there at number 1, isn't he, WBO? So there's a real merry-go-round. You could have a very, very good fight. I think what we need, Andy, is the arenas and stadiums back. That's the problem. I mean, we were talking about putting Callum on at Anfield at some point, maybe last summer or the summer before. But, that's gone away for now. But wouldn't that be fantastic? Liverpool win the league again, which we will. And then, in May, we have Callum's sort of homecoming, and if he can, bring the treasure back from Texas in a couple of weeks, fantastic. And then you do him against, Billy Joe and, put the Smith boys on. And, there's loads of Liverpool fighters, aren't there? I'd love to see Jazza Dickens after his terrific win in Golden Contract, and so many others, Tasha Jonas and loads of them. So, he could pack them out, and, maybe Paul could even get the gloves on again. And, that would be a great thing to do. But I really like Eubank and Saunders. I really like that. I think that could happen. I was speaking to Kel the other day, Kel Brook, and, he still hasn't put that Amir Khan fight out. He still thinks that might be the fight that, that both of them can get up for, because really there doesn't seem a lot of avenues for them to go if they carry on. And I think Brook and Khan Brook, however you want to look at it, could still be made next year. So there's a lot of British big fights that could be made, which is cool, because, you get those at 10, 11 o'clock at night rather than at 4 a.m. So, happy days. But let's see what happens. Billy Joe needs a big fight next, but I was very impressed with him on Friday night, not Saturday.
Just touch on the undercard from that one, Adam, from Friday night. We saw James Tennyson in destructive fashion once again, stopping Josh O'Reilly. But after the fight, I'm sure you've seen it plenty of times, Johnny Nelson coming out saying that he'd fancy James to defeat Gervonta Davis. Just your thoughts on kind of, firstly, James's performance, and then also Johnny's comments.
James's performance first, maybe, because that's easier to dissect. I thought he was terrific. I thought that he's a natural puncher. He's lightweight. I think he looks really strong now. Josh O'Reilly, bit of an unknown quantity. Obviously, he'd only fought at a certain level, so rather flattered by his WBA ranking. But I look with James, you beat what's in front of you. It was a shame in many ways that, someone unbeaten came over and then couldn't stand up to him and give him a few rounds. But Tennyson's a predator, and he's a fantastic finisher, and he's exciting, and it's what we want. And I'd love to go to Belfast Belfast with him. You know, he's a great young man. You know, I had the again being in the bubble. I had the pleasure of an hour or two with Mark Dunlop, who guides him, his manager, and you know, Mark was telling me all about James's sort of background and how much he's sort of, you know, done a lot of this on his own, and you know, so real hard times. And it's great to see fighters like that come through. And you know, he's had his ups and downs. You know, he got stopped by Tevin Farmer at, you know, world level. He got outclassed that night. Let's not hide about that, you know, but it was super feathers. He seems stronger at lightweight. Trouble is the lightweight division is creme de la creme. You know, Teofimo Lopez, Vasyl Lomachenko, okay, might go down, but Gervonta Davis, you know, Devin Haney, it's huge. And I wouldn't put James in with those names at the moment. I think someone like a Jorge Linares, who was mentioned afterwards, would be a fantastic fit. Johnny got giddy. Johnny got carried away, I think, a little bit. Look, Johnny said that's why we have pundits. Johnny, Carl, Matt, they say things which are going to get people talking. I've got to say, when he mentioned that with Gervonta Davis, saying that Tennyson would I can't remember the words, either he'd beat him or we'd win or whatever, but I know what I did. I almost dropped my microphone, and Matt Macklin and I just looked at each other and we were going, you know, there's a bit of that. But look, if Johnny believes that, then great. If that's what he thinks. I wouldn't put James in with Gervonta Davis at the moment. Could he beat him at some point? Who knows? You know, we don't know how it's developing, but you'd have to say Davis is a massive favourite if they fought now. So no, I don't agree with Johnny on that point. But Gervonta Davis looked phenomenal to me. I mean, Leo Santa Cruz, you know, one of my favourite fighters of recent years, and teat tough, and look what he did to him. So that's a big call. But I tell you what, Tennyson can punch, and he'll have a puncher's chance with anybody. But they've got to be a little bit careful with matching him, of course, because he's come unstuck before. So you know, carefully does it. He's knocking on the door for that world title, but I wouldn't go there at the level they are now with your Lopez's, your Gervonta Davis, your Devin Haney's. I'm not sure he's ready for those yet. Let's see him have a couple more first, and then maybe get the shot.
Moving forwards, Adam, and on to Saturday night. As I say, we saw Anthony Yarde versus Lyndon Arthur. Lyndon Arthur victorious with a very close split decision win. Although one of the cards, having said that, had it very wide. Not quite sure how, but yeah, 117, 111 on that one. But what were your thoughts on that fight, Adam?
Tight fight. I was a little bit disappointed with Anthony Yarde, as we've spoken sort of off camera. I thought that, you know, I expected better from him, but Lyndon Arthur, what a great win for him, a fantastic win for him. You know, there's a couple there, you know, in recent weeks on the BT Warren shows, you know, that, you know, Joe Joyce upset the apple cart against Daniel Dubois. Lyndon Arthur comes in. But quite a lot of people in the bubble last week here were saying that he was going to win that. They fancied him. So, look, it's a really, really good win for him. And there's some great fights to be made in that division, aren't there? We know that. And so, you know, that sets us all up for a great 2021. Congratulations to Lyndon, and Anthony will come again. You got to remember, it's been a very, very hard year for Anthony Yarde. I know he came back and he got that win, but you know, the most important thing is health and family, and he's been badly affected by, you know, what's happened with this pandemic, and you know, and really that's got to be playing on his mind, and you've got to just sort of wish him a nice festive rest, a nice time, and he'll be back in 2021. But it was close, wasn't it? And well done to Lyndon Arthur.
Before the fight, and well, for probably the best part of a year now, there was a lot of talk about Anthony Yarde versus Joshua Buatsi. With that loss in mind, I know that there is a rematch clause, and both of them are looked to kind of finalise those details between themselves. But depending on what happens there, what does the loss mean for a potential Buatsi Yarde fight?
Look, anything can be drummed up. Anything can be sort of resurrected in many ways. You know, we were talking about Joshua at the beginning of this. He lost to Andy Ruiz, and he beats Andy Ruiz, and he's now back in the driving seat. So, you know, a loss to Anthony Yarde, and you know, the Kovalev loss was nothing. That was a really good effort, and that was a fantastic. He was never expected to win that. And so, look, you know, it's like with Daniel Dubois, everyone having a go at Daniel Dubois for this, that, and the other. I mean, it's a loss. Joe Joyce won the fight. You know, Dubois is 23. He'll come again. He'll learn from it. And we'll see how he learns from it. And it's all part of the education. You know, people that I'm surrounded with, Johnny Nelson lost his first 3 professional fights. He froze in world title opportunities. He was hounded out of Sheffield. You know, he went into exile. He learned his trade on the road in all countries around the world. He came back. I think he was undefeated in like 33 fights when he came back. World Cruiserweight champion against Carl Thompson at the numerous attempt. And he went and defended it 13 times. It's a career. And I think that, you know, we're all quick to jump on, oh, there's a loss, you know, what's going to happen? Oh, he won't fight Joshua Buatsi. Of course, Anthony Yarde can still fight Joshua Buatsi, but so can Lyndon Arthur, and so can Callum Johnson. There's loads of fights out there. You know, it's a case of, I think Buatsi needs a big fight. I think that, you know, he had a tough one last time. You know, he was unbeaten, wasn't he, Challenge? And it was like, you know, it was back on my now. You know, he struggled with him for a couple of rounds. When he got his range, Johnson fight, but you know, or the Yarde fight, I think, and any one of them. But there's plenty out there in that light heavyweight division, and you know, let's just look forward to really good matches as opposed to sort of getting on their back and saying, oh no, that's now dead in the water, or that's not going to happen. Of course, it can happen. They're fights. They're still good fights. It was a close one on Saturday.
Moving forward again, and during the night, we saw Errol Spence Jr. return to the ring with a points victory. That's a unanimous decision victory over Danny Garcia. Just how good was it to see Errol back into the ring, Adam, and to obviously see him go over full distance?
Yeah, I'm a massive admirer of Errol Spence. I watch him as an amateur. I've been lucky enough to be in America watching him as a young pro. Obviously, we got to know him around the Kell Brook fight, and I saw the Sean Porter fight. You know, I was there for that, and that was a tough night's work. You know, the accident was terrible. You know, you wondered sort of, you know, the first reports in the first sort of 24, 48 hours was, you know, survival or injuries, or could he ever box again, all that sort of stuff. And there's so much there that was flying around. It's just really good that he's recovered from it. And I always thought that it was going to be, I mean, it's a tough fight to come back to against Danny Garcia, you know, who's top draw, you know, former world champion and, you know, multi-weight world champion. He's a good fighter, Danny Garcia, you know, and I thought Errol boxed well. I thought he nullified him, you know, utilized his skills. He didn't take the risks. Maybe he was slightly wary of what had happened to him and the sort of feeling his way back in. And obviously, there's a massive fight out there against Terence Crawford, and maybe there is a little bit of just that is on the horizon, and he is sort of looking at that. But look, he was brilliant against Garcia, wasn't he? He's been brilliant, Errol Spence, and you know, I really think that he's one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world. Full stop. We want to see him in with Crawford, and I thought it was a good performance on Saturday night. You know, there weren't the knockouts, were they? The Arthur and Yarde fight, and the Billy Joe and Martin Murray fight in that one. A lot of 12 round. I thought Errol boxed well, really well. So yeah, great to see him back.
Back, Adam. He just slightly froze then. Yep. Adam, just pick that
I
one
can
back
hear you
up.
now.
Yep, perfect. Adam, just obviously a little technical issue there, but pick that back up. Moving away from Errol Spence, we had a fight announced yesterday. Floyd Mayweather will return against Logan Paul next year. Just your thoughts on seeing kind of another YouTube star going in there with what is one of the best boxers of all time?
Have we frozen again? No. What do I think? Look, I mean, Floyd Mayweather is the greatest fighter of our generation. He's the greatest fighter to lace them up since Sugar Ray Leonard, in my opinion. Okay. I've been lucky enough to be ringside. I've been around the world. I've been lucky enough to see all these great fighters in up close and personal in training sessions, in gyms, at ringside, whatever. In my opinion, and that's only mine, and others will disagree. Floyd Mayweather was unique. He was absolutely brilliant. Yes, he had a couple of really tough nights. You know, he was possibly a bit lucky when he had that first fight with Jose Luis Castillo, but you know, every fighter like that, Joe Calzaghe had that with Robin Reed in a couple of fights, you know, so everyone that gets that unbeaten record has got to come at some point to a fight where, you know, people are going to say that was controversial. But, you know, Mayweather was unbelievable, you know, multi-weight champion, and, you know, look at him. I don't like the exhibition out in the Far East. This next one, Logan's a great guy, right? We worked with him with KSI. I really like Logan Paul. He's bright, he's intelligent. You know, it was a close fight with KSI. It was a good fight for its level, right? We're not talking about two guys who are going to go on and be any champion at all, any area champion, whatever. But at its level, two novice pros, it was good. I would see Jake Paul and KSI. You know, Jake Paul the other night didn't like the match at all, but he showed power. Jake Paul and KSI, you know, if it's a sort of level playing field and it's going to get a lot of publicity for the sport, yeah, I can see that. Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather, it's just, to me, it's theatre, and that's all it is. You know, it's what is it? Is this for money? Is this for fame? Is this for appeal? What is it? You know, I like Logan in his field and what he does. And obviously, I'm a huge admirer of what Floyd has done and has retired. So this has been a strange year, Andy. Okay. It's been a mad, crazy, horrible year in many ways. 2021 is going to see some superb matchups, some intriguing matchups, and some crazy matchups. And this is a crazy one.
Final thing, Adam, you mentioned it earlier, Canelo-Smith being next week. One thing I haven't asked you about, just hasn't really kind of come to mind. It will be on Dazn. Just your thoughts on not being able to obviously have that fight on Sky?
We want every fight on Sky, if we could. You know, everyone in Britain will be behind Callum Smith, trying to hope that he can pull off the upset against Canelo. But Canelo's an elite fighter. We love seeing Canelo. The story has been amazing. You want to watch every Canelo fight, don't you? And you want to watch Callum Smith. So, yeah, I'm very excited about it. Yeah, there's a bit of me that's gutted that Eddie and Frank will be flying out and we won't be. And, you know, but listen, we're going to watch it at home. We're going to get, I've already got my DAZN subscription. I paid my money. I've got my subscription. I've told John Markovsky I'm ready to go. You know, let's watch it. You know, we've said this many times, Andy. We can't have every sweet in the jar. We've had a great lineup this year. We've got a fantastic night on Saturday night, the big Sky Sports box office event of the year. You know, apart from Fury and Wilder, which was terrific back in February, and I was over in Vegas for that, but BT had that. For us, this is the big box office night for us. Anthony Joshua's return, the superstar, you know, the global icon. Everybody loves AJ. He's fantastic. He crosses over, doesn't he? And people like, I've been speaking to, oh, AJ's back, AJ's back. There's a real genuine excitement, especially when people are flat in this period and people have been struggling. It's great to be able to pass back on people's faces, have the main man, even with no gate, albeit 1,000 gate, but really, in effect, certainly from a financial point of view, no gate, to be able to get Anthony Joshua on is absolutely brilliant. So we've got a fantastic, you know, finish to the year, a finale, and then we can all put our feet up like we did with the Boy Joyce the other night. We'll all be watching Callum, wishing him well, and hoping that he can do the job. And you know, but it is tough. It's a very hard fight for him. You know, Canelo Alvarez against Danny Jacobs was meant to be one of those, and you know, you could just see what Canelo was doing in there, being up close, and the just that little extra he had. And it's going to be a hard night for Callum Smith. Can he do it? Maybe. Will he do it? I don't know. It's a big ask and away from home. But look, his brother went in with him. Callum's unbeaten. He's a big guy and he's a big puncher and he's a better inside fighter than people give him credit for. And I think he's a lot better than he showed against John Ryder. So on the back of that performance against John Ryder, you've got to fancy Canelo heavily. But if Callum gets it all right, there is a possibility of an upset. Of course there is. This is boxing. But, you know, you've got to say Canelo is a strong favourite and we'll see what happens. I think whatever happens, Callum will put a fantastic performance in. Whoever wins or loses will be fighting next year in other great matches. So it's great. It's one to put the feet up. Remember, we've also got the darts going on as well, the World Championship darts on Sky that start just after the Joshua fight next week. You know, I'm going to be up there and enjoying that, doing a bit of commentary as well. And so I'm looking forward to getting involved in the sort of the darts at Ali Pali. And you know, if I'm not working that night, I'll be well, I won't be at 4 a.m. So I'll be feet up and watching and Callum and Canelo. Can't wait for it. Wish we had it. Gutted we don't have it. But I wish them well. And you know, good luck to Eddie and Frank who've got the trip.
Adam, we will leave it there now. I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your day and get on to more important matters than speaking to me. It's always been a pleasure to speak to you, though, and pleasure to catch up once again. Enjoy the rest of this week, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you for speaking to Boxing Social.
Always a pleasure, Andy. Speak soon.